So as I already told the rest who came before, I said today we don't have like the schedule that we normally have. This is the program. We start from A and finish at C. We just thought it's so important just to let people, claim the space, hold the space, share their narratives, share also their grief, but also their stories, how, Prof has been able to influence them, and also look at how we can also have maybe a plan for the future. Who knows what we could do. I've said so me Jata, as Ngugi used to call me, Wamboi, Vamba and Odilia, who is still not here. We are the founders of CAL, and we had the pleasure and there she is, the privilege of really having a good journey and celebrating Mwalimu while he was still with us. I think there was no time that we organized a CAL meeting which he did not attend. So we are very happy and very privileged that we have the honor of celebrating him, but also at the same time him also accepting us to be part of his journey, which I think is very important. So the meeting today has been organized by many people. It's a solidarity co-initiative. It has been organized not only by CAL with the 4 people that I mentioned. It is also with African School, Odilia. It is with Pandambegu Initiative, which is me, Elizabeth, Jerry, Edna, and there's also someone else who is missing, Jill. I don't know if she's going to come. It has also been organized by Dr. Oderi with her African School, because they also have a correct me, Dr. Oderi, was it a class or was it a library called after Ngugi wa Thiongo?
The library, our
the
library. Library.
Yes, Ngugi wa Thiongo Library. And I remember me and Ngugi attended 2 meetings online with the school where he twice spoke with the kids, and then once where he celebrated because of the school being named one of the best schools in the world. And I visited Oderi 2023, and I will do that again this year. So yes, and Pandambegu also, which is also an initiative that we've come up with, especially when there was the Gen Z Mandamano. So also another way of making sure that these stories continue. I see Cookie is a journalist, and he posted or wrote also, or we wrote collaboratively with Carl a statement about the event today, and he also published it in a newspaper, I think in a magazine. So yeah, a lot of people who have been involved, and I'm very thankful that a lot also saw the urge and the need to just come together collectively and just celebrate the work and the legacy of Professor Ngugi wa Thiongo. For many Mwalimu, and for us then also Prof. So I actually did not want to be the one taking over the moderation, but it seems as if I have already started. So we will co-share this moderation. We will co-share how we are going to hold the space together. It's a space for all of us. Hello, Otieno. Otieno is also here because with Otieno, we also have an institution that was created in February, where we had the inauguration of the institute with the Institute of Eldoret, and Professor Ngugi wa Thiongo was to give a lecture, and I was actually planning the lecture with him before he passed on. So, and I hope that the institute that we formed, because he was very happy about the formation of this African Institute, that we are still going to continue with the decolonial lecture series that we were planning, just as a continuation of his work, but also of his legacy. Yes, I also see who else do I see? I don't want to forget anybody. Yeah, so I see Njoki Dikaro doing cultural work, especially Kikuyu culture events. One happened last week, and I don't want even to say it here because I am so ashamed. I was to go there, and then the person who was to take my son called me in the middle of the way. I told this to Mireille, and then I was on my way, and the person just dropped my son on the doorsteps and said, I can't be able to take him to karate, so you have to do it. So I had to go back home and get my son.
That is also building the nation.
Yes.
Bring the children up.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. So everybody, welcome. I see Lisbeth Perotti. She's also here. I think she also Odelia is going to introduce something that she also performed, and Odelia is also going to share with us. So normally when we have CAL meetings, it is one boy who is always our singer. She's the one who always starts by gracing our souls and our minds with beautiful songs and the beautiful voice that she has. Waboi, so I don't know if you feel like if the spirit is in within you today to also grace us. Maybe if not now, then later you just decide when you feel like, and then yeah, we can just continue. So yeah, I will pass on the mic. So as I said, I don't want to be the sole person speaking. I pass on the mic, and now we just open up the floor. We want to hold the space, each and every one of us share our stories, our narratives, our memories about Ngugi, but also how we want to remember him and the things we remember him about. Okay.
Thank you so much, Njeri. And thank you everybody for coming. When we were talking about this, we were thinking Ngugi has touched our lives, each and every one of us somehow. And it's so beautiful that all of you have come here today. And I love singing because I feel like singing really does connect us. I was not very prepared to sing, so I'm going to sing a Kenyan song that most of you know by Eric Wainaina. And for those who do not understand Kiswahili, it's a song about unity. Yeah, it's about unity and yeah, the desire to live together as one. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation and how it's just going to be just organic like that without too much planning. I find that such conversations end up being really nourishing. And the song is just going to be a cappella, no playground or nothing, and feel free to join in. Okay. Umoja ni fahari yetu, ndugu ndio nguvu, chuki na ukabila hatutaki hata kamwe, lazima tuungane, tuijenge nchi yetu, pasiwe hata moja anayetenganisha. Naishi natumaini, najitolea daima Kenya, hakika ya bendera ni udhabiti wangu, nyeusi ya wananchi na nyekundu ni ya damu, kijani ni ardhi, nyeupe ya amani. Daima mimi Mkenya, mwananchi mzalendo. Kwa uchungu na mateso, kwa vilio na huzuni, tulinyakuliwa uhuru na mashujaa wa thamani. Hawakustushwa na risasi au kufungwa gerezani. Nia yao ukombozi, kuvunja pingu za ukoloni. Naishi natumaini, najitolea daima Kenya, hakika ya bendera ni udhabiti wangu, nyeusi ya wananchi na nyekundu ni ya damu, kijani ni ardhi, nyeupe ya amani. Daima mimi Mkenya, mwananchi mzalendo.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much,
Thank
really.
you.
Um, Thank you so much. And now I pass over the mic to you, Vamba, because you're
Mm,
already unmuted.
mm, yes, thank you. So I decided to share my first experience with the professor. The first time I read him, I think I must have been 12, and I lived in a small town in northern Liberia. I had the fortune of having brothers who went to an English speaking school. Um, it was a public school, and one of my brothers loved fiction, loved literature. So he had this habit of um, collecting the Heinemann African Writers series. And among the books that he collected and bought was Weep Not Child. And so when I read him, the professor had, like all great novelists, had this talent of making you to read him as if you were the character you were reading about, and that is the power of his storytelling. That when I read about the characters living thousands of miles away from me, I recognized myself in them, and that was the beginning of my great and strong relationship with this man. Later, I discovered that he had abandoned writing in English and choosing to write in Gikuyu. I didn't know that when I read his first novels. I was just fascinated by the world that he created. And years later, I became myself a writer. I had this fortune, the privilege to become a writer. And I was invited in 2007, 2 years indeed after I've written my first novel. So I was like in my 20s, my early 20s, when I wrote my first novel. I was fortunate to have received this invitation to go to South Africa. And I knew he would be there. So, so I remember we're sitting, we the writers have been invited to a particular place to have this dinner. And so that was my first time then that I would see the professor. But I mean, I was one of the first there, and he wasn't there. So I said, oh, perhaps he's not going to join us tonight. But then this was in Durban, but then I saw him coming, and he had this very, I mean, have instant connection because he has this tunic. I think it was designed in West Africa. I don't know whether that is worn in Kenya, right? I mean, I felt this was uniquely West African. So I had this, like an elder brother, an uncle. I had this instant connection with him, and um, and what was unique about it, I had already convinced a Dutch media to make this radio documentary about the professor and his call for African writers to write in their mother tongues. And so, I mean, I was in South Africa in Durban for a purpose, you know, and he came, and when you meet your idols, they end up almost always disappointing you, so because the image you have of them is this image of perfection, and no one is perfect. But um, the professor came closer to perfection in the sense that he did not disappoint me. In fact, on the contrary, he was very accessible. And writers are not accessible. I mean, they are very wary. They are just they are very careful with what they say. They don't want to reveal much. But he wasn't like that. I mean, so he gave me access to his world. He was very friendly, very amicable, and we hit off right on. And I made this wonderful document. 10 days. Every day we're making these recordings for 10 days, you know. So this great relationship then was established between us. I remember, so I took some books that his books with me, and he signed them. And this is what one of these things he said, for Sharif, write on, what Thiongo, he said. And very much like him. This is, I saw something that I just I'd forgotten completely, and I just saw this. All right, he said, for Sharif, with respect and admiration for your genius. I was like, genius, what is he talking about? So I think he had this lightness about him, this light-sided aspect that I really appreciated and loved so much. Yes, so I made this documentary, and I came and I had this conversation with a professor of African literature at Leiden University, who was very condescending of the professor, saying, "Oh, he was in the red in Kenya, and no one reads him anymore." I said, "What are you talking about? I mean, I was born reading this man, So what? So it's nonsense what you're saying. So I've been a defender of his philosophy because I mean it is logical that we should do what he's asking. He's not asking. He was not asking something impossible of us. It's the most logical and the most reasonable thing to ask for someone, an African born in Africa, to write in his or her mother tongue, you know. And this is what I've been trying to say all the time, And then Carl came, which I felt was a privilege to be part of it, and he was like the man he was, very humble to join us. Some great writers will say, "Oh, I don't have time for that," or I don't even know what to say, but he wasn't like that. So I mean, I'm honored to have been part of his world, and yes, and we'll carry on his legacy. I thought I would close by reading just, I think, a page from the river between. Um, yes. So um, the two ridges lay side by side. One was Camino, the other was Makuyu. Between them was a valley. It was called the Valley of Life.
Mm.
Behind Camino and Makuyu were many more valleys and ridges, lying without any discernible plan. They were like many sleeping lions which never woke. They just slept, the big sleep of their creator. A river flowed through the Valley of Life. If there had been no bush and no forest trees covering the slopes, you could have seen the river when you stood on top of either Camino or Makuyu. Now you had to come down. Even then, you could not see the whole extent of the river as it gracefully and without any apparent haste wound its way down the valley like a snake. The river was called Honia, which meant cure or bring back to life. Honia River never dried. It seemed to possess a strong will to live, scorning droughts and weather changes. And it went on in the same way, never hurrying, never hesitating. People saw this and were happy. Honia was the soul of Camino and Makuyu. It joined them, and men, cattle, wild beasts, and trees were all united by this life stream. When you stood in the valley, the two ridges ceased to be sleeping lions united by their common source of life. They became antagonists. You could tell this not by anything tangible, but by the way they faced each other, like two rivals ready to come to blows in a life and death struggle for the leadership of this isolated region. It began long ago. A man rose in Makuyu. He claimed that Gikuyu and Mumbi sojourned there with Murungu on their way to Mukuruwe, Wakatanga. As a result of that stay, he said, leadership had been left to Makuyu. Not all the people believed him, for it had not always been whispered and rumored that Gikuyu and Mumbi had stopped at Camino, and had not a small hair grown out of the soil on which they stood south of Camino. And Murungu had told them, this land I gave to you, O man and woman. It is yours to rule until you and your posterity. The land was fertile. It was the whole of Gikuyu country, from one horizon embracing the heavens to the other hidden in the clouds. So the story ran in Camino. Spiritual superiority and leadership had been left there. Yes. So I think I have all his books, but I'll give the floor to one of us. Mhm.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Who do I see? I see Odilia. Maybe we continue like that with the people that I can see on my screen. Alice Belle. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Wagoro, who is also here. She translated his first, she translated the book, his first book. I don't know if she want to say habari yenyu just for 1 minute. I know that she's in the house, and thank you so much for joining and also for coming. Maybe you can see something maybe after. So it's an open mic. We're trying to do an open mic. So that everybody can have 5 minutes to say something, so that everybody has a chance to say something and share. Okay. So, and then Odilia, maybe you pass it to us.
Let me give the floor to Otieno first, Dr. Otieno, Dr.
Okay,
Ngayo.
5 minutes.
Yes, good evening or good morning, depending on where you are, all my colleagues and friends and comrades. I'm so glad that you honored this moment in honor of our Mwalimu. It's an emotional moment because some of us had a close contact with him until the last minute. He was a great inspiration to us in many, many ways. And one of the key instruments that he left with us is not just about the publications, but the content of what he published. And I think I take one example, the book that we spoke with him about at length. He asked us in our conversations, which lasted sometimes several hours in the wee of the night because of the time difference between Europe and the United States and Africa. And he said, don't forget who you are. I argue that the African identity or the African humanity is a very contested one. And he spoke to this question of who we are in his book, Decolonizing the Mind. And all of us who have read that book or speak about decolonization in Africa or epistemic decolonization in general would agree that our problem starts with the mind and stops with it. It is where the permanent damage was caused, leave alone the spiritual dimension. It was the mind and the soul that was attacked so strongly. Then the rest of the body became instrument of exploitation, chained and dealt with in other ways, as you know. So the question was, he took a bold move to say, who we are matters. And he took the path of language. He used that book, there's a phrase or in one of these chapters in that book, Decolonizing the Mind, when he reminded us of very simple experiment or activity in Kenyan schools of his time, and it continued to our times, where we were punished for being who we are. If you speak your mother tongue, you are punished. There was a disc being spread around in classrooms. So you speak your language and you get the disc and you're punished for it. He made reference to that. And I think that instrument of decolonizing our mind left a very permanent damage until this moment that we cannot recover fully. Although it is good to speak another person's language, and some of us have done our best, Vamba has done, and many others here, through our theses and many ways of expression, but it doesn't remove our humanity. Even though the way it was framed and presented was that we need to alienate ourselves from ourselves by speaking another person's language. So if you read Fanon's work of the concept of self-alienation, language was one instrument of emphasizing that. And many of us have thought that if we are so good in the foreign language, then we are much advanced in human creation, especially the African one. But he tried to ask us to rethink that notion. And he started writing his language, his mother tongue, the Gikuyu. There were reactions to it. And I think there was a conversation with Chinua Achebe about that discussion. When Chinua Achebe emphasized, he says, nothing wrong with that. We can still learn the language of the oppressor to such an extent that we have a deep understanding of what it really meant. Because many of us speak this language, and if you ask many people what they really mean, they never say what they mean. They express themselves in English, but if you ask them exactly, what do you really mean? And you ask them in their mother tongue, they will tell you something different. Then you ask them, now can you tell me now that in English? That's where that's where the problem is. That's where the big challenge is. And by going back to, or not going back, but reconfiguring ourselves or reorienting ourselves by checking in deeply who we are in terms of how we express our humanity in terms of language, is very critical for dealing with the mental question which was disturbed by colonialism. And I think when he speaks to decolonizing the mind, he's asking us to rethink how we express our humanity, the same humanity that has been dehumanized through colonization. And I think we can strategically use the languages that we have learned, but also use that to rethink our own languages, because there's power in it. If you talk of philosophy of science, from epistemological point of view, knowledge is deeply embedded in the language. Mwalimu told me in one of our conversations at night, there's no way we can express the intellect so strongly if we are not embedded in our own culture, our identity, and who we are. Philosophers of Western orientation develop their ideas on the basis of their culture and identity and so on. And they justified that. Well, in our case, we philosophize on the basis of someone's expression of our intellect in someone's way of expressing their humanity in terms of language. And for me, I find this very powerful. And my last statement is about my commitment. I talked to him and I said, Mwalimu, I might not be writing in my other language, but he also asked me to do so. I made one translation for him. But I said, I'll want to take this to one more level with the knowledge and energy that I still have left on this earth. Two things. Drawing on what he has done through the publication on decolonizing the mind, let's do something about epistemic decolonization, with language as an entry to that, because that is where the power is. Even how we use our languages, I mean, in Africa, but also how we use the language of the foreigner. Because we cannot reverse things if we don't understand the language of the foreigner very well. Most of the things were being defined and framed by that language. So we're even trying to unwind that in order to understand each other. So that is another obstacle. And then the other thing is to rediscover our languages that we almost forgot, or we are encouraged to forget. So there are two levels of rediscovery. And the third one is more the governance question. Africa is run from the perspective of how we have been framed by others. So the governance issue is about how we relate in society. And we relate through expression in word, music, and other forms. But the written text, spoken text, is a very powerful aspect of relatedness. And that's where how strong we are in how we express ourselves through the language that we have is very important for how we govern and relate to each other. So we have governments and ministries in Africa. They sound the same, read the same like the Western one, like the Westphalian ones, but they don't produce the same. Why? Because we are saying something else and we don't mean that. So we can bring epistemic decolonization through language, even in how we frame all our aspects of life, whether in especially the governance part, where we are still talking about things that are far removed from our reality using another person's language.
That's your
We
time,
repeat
Dr.
those things in workshops and seminars. For example, we talk about capacity building. It is only an African that whose capacity is built. But all of us know that you build what doesn't exist. We can only strengthen what is there. No, but we build capacity in Africa. If you do a workshop in Europe, no, there's no notion of capacity building in any way. We use a lot of notions that are very dehumanizing, the frames that are very dehumanizing, and we reproduce it by ourselves because we use another person's language. And if we bring that to governance, that's another chain which is locked around our necks and hands and feet in terms of how we relate. So that's another area of stagnation. So governance component is one area that I talked to Mwalimu and I said, we'll do our best through these spaces that we speak to that using the metaphor that he gave to us, entering into epistemic decolonization through language. I will stop there and thank you so much for coming to mourn our Mwalimu. I hope this is not the end. The institute which we have at the University of Eldoret was inspired by him. We talked with him long nights discussing how to frame things, what vision to have. But I see that the seeds are there. They're already planted. The number that is here confirms it. We are 35. 35 seeds are already here. They'll become 70, and they'll become 1,000 very soon. So let's have a series of activities in different spaces that picks on different aspects of his vision, which he expressed through the pen and the content of what that pen wrote on paper. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for those powerful words. Yeah, I would love to continue listening to you. But just because of the time and because everybody here, we have the privilege of having so very many powerful people here, and we would really like to hear from all of you. So I have taken it upon myself to time all of us. So please note, if I tell you time is up, it's not that I disrespect what you're saying, or it just means that just so that we don't, because we've sat here sometimes up to 12, those times when you used to have CAL meetings. So we just want to be mindful of the time. Okay, Odilia.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. And I am so happy to see so many of us here who have gathered to honor our hero. And because Ngugi wa Thiongo had a way to play with words, I decided, I'm going to honor him by just writing a piece of poem for him. And together with Elizabeth, I'm going to share what we have produced. It's exactly 5 minutes. Let me share.
So while you're sharing, when Wambo is looking at the watch, then I'll be looking at the people on my screen. I'll just be telling people who is next on the screen, if that's okay.
Ngugi wa Thiongo, a warrior of minds wielding words, challenging institutions with the power of ink. He mirrored chaos upon the blank page, awakening spirits with each stroke of pen. He birthed flames of language, absorbed the echoes of memory, a masterful storyteller, a voice profound.
A soul who spoke a million words in one breath and compressed a universe into a single phrase. He unraveled complex tales in lucid prose, translating the intricate into the accessible, transforming the mind into a battleground. His pen was a weapon, and his writings were a fortress.
In silence, he found his ceasefire, soldiering in solitude for his people's dignity, granting them the language to unravel the enigma, nourishing their souls with words that resonate. His presence filled the voids and occupied each room, radiating warmth around the bonfire of African tales.
Yet you slipped away, choosing silence as your final weapon, enigmatic in your quiet departure. But we know silence too speaks, the most potent language in a story untold.
Africa's mightiest tree has fallen, but from its roots new shoots shall arise, in the east, the west, the south, the north, reaching skyward, nourished by your legacy. For Africa will rise, uplifted by the ink of Ngugi wa Thiongo. A million words in a fleeting sentence, a million sentences within a single thought, crafting clarity from complexity in every tale, a poet, a warrior, a beacon for us all.
You chose silence, yet your echo remains, mystifying existence in its own beautiful way. Each whisper of your spirit continues to inspire, resonating through the valleys of our shared stories. As we gather, embers glow in the warmth of your words, a legacy left for coming generations.
Yeah, just for 1 minute, Lisbeth Perotti is the producer of this beautiful piece. I don't know whether my other partner, Virginia, is here. Please, Lisbeth, just say one word, 1 minute. I'll be grateful.
Thank you, Sister Adelia. Good afternoon, everyone. I have no words. There are no words to express my feelings and my thoughts about this great man. So it's just silence, and in silence, there is so much to say and to hear and to feel. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Lisbeth. I pass on the mic.
Yes, thank you, Delia. Oh, that was so emotional. Thank you. I mean, oh, beautiful. It's just touching, and it keeps us reminding us that really someone is missing amongst us, and yeah, yeah. I also lack words, and it's very hard that I lack words. So I think so that everybody has a chance to speak. I'm just going to look at the people next to me on the screen, and then I just pass on the mic. And I can see the mic is, I'm next to Elizabeth Holdeman. Then afterwards is Jerry Kamau, then Dr. Oderi. That's how I see my screen. So maybe if you can.
So greetings, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to this memorial or remembrance for Professor Ngugi wa Thiongo. I decided to write something because my desire to have met him was not fulfilled, but nonetheless, I did get to meet him in all those several books of his, some of which I still use for sharing his word and also empowering others. As we honor the memorial of Ngugi wa Thiongo, I want to reflect on monumental impact his book, Decolonizing the Mind, has had on my personal journey and how it continues to shape my work as an educator, author, and decolonial trainer. For me, this was not just a book. It was a mirror, a map, and a megaphone. I just want to highlight some of the parts that really, transformed me. To begin with, for me, was language as a battlefield in the mind. The choice of language and the use of language is central to a people's definition of themselves. I do recall the reason why this is important because I'm one of those people who went to school and our school books were published in Oxford Printing Press in London. So you can imagine what type of education system we did enjoy then. And coming across Ngugi wa Thiongo's The River Between was a fresh wind that came to us at the time when we were young and getting to know ourselves. Ngugi made it clear that colonialism was not just about land. It was about the conquest of memory, thought, and speech. His work awakened in me the realization that languages are taught to admire, and the ones we taught to forget are not neutral. They carry histories of erasure. This has empowered me to center language consciousness in my work, to validate African languages in learning spaces, and to help others reclaim the narratives stolen through linguistic domination. The weaponization of English in education, for me, the English language is a hierarchy and is a tool of psychological warfare. Because Ngugi helped me understand is that language hierarchy is systematic violence. It is not just about words. It's about who is allowed to dream, to think, and to define in their own terms. This hierarchy devalues our indigenous languages as less legitimate. And in doing so, it subtly tells us that we ourselves are less legitimate. And I do remember going to school, speaking your mother tongue or even Swahili, which was then called vernacular, would earn you beatings with a ruler on the hand at the least. That our ways of knowing, speaking, loving, mourning, and imagining the world are not worthy of global attention or academic respect. Ngugi exposed how colonial education systems used English to disconnect African children from their cultures, values, and communities. I saw myself in this, and I lived this. And I saw how it played across African classrooms, in the diaspora schools, systems, and even in our internal dialogues. I now use the insights to interrogate educational whiteness, and the Eurocentric canon in my critical whiteness trainings. My sessions dismantle the myth of neutral knowledge and ask whose knowledge we are consuming and at what cost. His decision to abandon English and write exclusively in Gikuyu was a radical one. We at that time were very shocked that he moved and shifted from writing English to Gikuyu. It wasn't just literally, it was political, ancestral, and spiritual. So Ngugi has taught us that culture is peripheral. It's foundational. Without reclaiming cultural identity, liberation is not going to be complete. This validated my work as Afrocentric healing, storytelling, and commuting rituals. Today, I train white institutions to confront their complicity in structural racism through critical whiteness work. I carry Ngugi's lessons into those spaces, not just as theory, but as a living resistance.
That's your
Ngugi's work
president.
Ngugi's work gave me the language for what I've always known, but I've never been allowed to name. I want to say one word about how I see him. Ngugi wa Thiongo lives in every mind that dares to liberate itself. His words are weapons, his memory is a map, his legacy is a fire we must keep alive. Asanteni. What was this? What do I do with this AI? What does
AI?
I don't know, somebody activated something and I wasn't sure. I'm not sure what that means.
I don't
What are
see
you
it here.
saying?
I've just said no because I don't know what AI.
No. Maybe just say no, because we don't know
I
what it
just said,
is.
I
Okay.
said louder. Panic.
Okay.
I said, hmm?
Okay. So then I pass on the mic to Njeri Kamau, then Dr. Oderi. Then on the screen, Odida has already spoken. Then it will be Wamboi and Bitungi if you'd like also to say something.
Okay.
And then I continue with the.
Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining us for this session of honoring Ngugi wa Thiongo. And I think from what everybody is saying is that how Ngugi impacted their lives in one way or the other. Because I listened to Vamba talking about reading from his book. He mentioned Camilo, he mentioned Makoyo, he mentioned River Honia. And when you're coming from these places, you almost see them. And when you hear someone who is not a Kenyan mentioning these places, then you know the impact must have been big. But Africa it's literally the same because it gives you an image of what Africa is from wherever you are. And it's the content of his work and the context that it gave, because regardless of where we are, I've also heard Otieno saying how it has impacted them in the university in Eldoret. It changes whether you are coming from the African continent. It has a bigger impact if you're an African living in the European and American context, because it gave us the tools, like Elizabeth was saying, to say and name things the way they are. It also he also has made us creative in the way we fight, in the forms of resistances that we are all engaged in one way or the other. Even in silences, you can use words to make very big resistance. But it's also what colonialism did to us, the spiritual damage, the traditional damage. And I want to bring this very big context. I mean, it's not a big, it's a context that all of you probably from African perspective would see it in a way different way. That before colonization, we had wise men. In Kikuyu, we say ago, modomogo. Wise men. Ngugi wa Thiongo was a wise man. He was a modomogo. because even our culture was demonized. So when you were told you are Modomogo, people thought you were a witch. But Ngugi wa Thiong'o was a Modomogo, and his ogo was in writing. He used word ahuraga bogoshi yake ugo wake wari bogoshi yake shiari kara. His instruments of wisdom was pen and paper. And that is something we have completely forgotten about who we are. So he did not only try to pen about decolonizing the mind, he was also an instrument of culture and tradition that was a form of passing on messages that were passed on for liberating people. So if we look at him in that context, then we also need to reflect on what is we are all wise people, we all have callings. How are we being in sync with the callings that we had? Because he was completely in sync in his liberation movement. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. Jerry, thank you for this, that wonderful acknowledgement and memory of our Fafa. I'd never thought of calling him a Modomogo, but he's a genius with the pen and the mind. Not only Modomogo. And I want to thank Jerry Jata, the star, and Carl. It's so good to see Vamba. So good to see Odilia. Odilia, I missed out on your presentation. Kumbi, I'm the one who doesn't know how to flip the screen. I'm using a tablet.
Ole, I will send you.
I'm just seeing everyone doing like this. I don't know, doing heart emojis. Or like, what's going on? Then at the last 5 seconds, I got it. So if I can get that.
Yes, I will.
I just want to encourage our boy. It's wonderful to be connected again and hear you speak. And I think I can see Wagare from the UK. I think that's, and everyone else. Anyway, Ramono, I love you. I love all our wonderful, anyone who supports the agenda of Africa being great and Africa being #1 and on the top is somebody I just align to, because that is it. As Njeri said, that is my Modomogo, that is my genius. Okay, that we have to get it right. And we have to stop thinking it's impossible and cutting corners. So you can imagine when I'd met Professor Ngugi when he came for a tour, I think it was in a book tour in 2015, Morogiwa Kegogo, The Wizard of the Crow, and he had a reading at Alliance High School. And we just went because it was open to the public. We couldn't believe, my husband and I, that we have access to this great professor. And we got the book, we signed, we said a few pleasantries like that. But where we started a relationship, I just can credit Carl. And if you don't know Carl, and I hope it now wakes up again, Kemet Awards for the advancement of African language. And Ngugi was the patron and was at the center of this wonderful idea. And I got to know about it from Jerry, and that's where I'm familiar with Vamba, Odilia, and Wambui. And it's amazing that in his lifetime, he saw the younger generation carry his ideals. So from there, I wrote to him and I told him about our school. So I'm a co-founder of an African-centered school. It's now called Freedom International School. And some of you have visited, Odilia has visited, Jerry Jata has visited, the rest of you come. And he was so amazed. And he's close friends with some of my relatives, but I did not tell him I'm so-and-so's niece. I just wanted him to get to know me through that connection of culturally driven education for our people. Remember doing the right thing for us. And after that, we kept in touch. And we are talking about 4 years ago, because I think that was 2021. And he did a workshop, a night workshop for our school. The whole school, parents, students attended, where we had read several of his books. Children were asking him questions. There will be a group that has read River in Between. There's a group that has read Petals of Blood. There's a group that has read The Devil on the Cross, and they would ask him questions about that and about his being in exile. And it was so wonderful to have this great man come down, like from heaven to our school, to give us all this wonderful education. But I think where he has really impacted on us is that he believed in us. He really believed in us. And one day he said that what I have done with the pen and with theory, you are doing in action. And you must continue putting up African languages at the forefront, African histories, African truths. You must continue doing the right thing. So I keep talking about doing the right thing. He said something which to me nowadays has become common, but he said we have normalized the abnormal. I don't know if anyone has found that phrase with him common. I thought that was a genius statement. I've owned it. We have normalized the abnormal, because to do the right thing, to stand up for the right thing for us is alien because of the kind of education that has been put in our mind. Elizabeth talked about it, that our books are from Oxford Press. How do you think when they're edited from Oxford Press, they look like? There will be a lot of...
That's your time, Dr. Oderi.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm done. Okay, so thank you so much. He was amazing. I can quickly say that apart from our school, where he did the conferences, we did a reflection on the upright revolution. Our library is named after him. So he'll always be here, Ngugi wa Thiongo Library. And finally, he used to call my husband and I Mwakino Oderi. My husband is called Oku. He's an Igbo. It means fire. Mwakino Oderi. And so when we got our son, we named him Ra, which is the Egyptian sun god. And it came from Ngugi wa Thiongo. Fire and light give the sun. And Gikuyu is called Riowa. Riwoko Adomamutaga Riowa. I was like, how can you call your son Rio? What is the You know, we are living in a very Eurocentric and very religious context. So I thank him for not only impacting on our school, but also loving us as a family. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much also for sharing, Dr. Oderi, light and fire. So I see Wamboi, then I see Bitungi, if you'd like to speak, and then I see Mamanjoki Dikaro, if you'd also want to speak, and I see Sita.
Okay, thank you so much. My God, I'm loving this. Everything that you guys are saying is so powerful. I can so much identify. Dr. Oderi, you mentioned about him coming down to us, and I thought this is something that really touched me about this man. He was so humble. I remember when Jerry gave me his number, I was like, are you serious? I can actually save his number on my phone. And she was like, yes, call him. And I called him and he picked up the phone and we talked for such a long time, and he would laugh. He had this laugh. It was high pitched when he found something very funny, and I can almost hear that ringing in my ears now. And he was laughing about the fact that I had told him that my sister is speaking English to her sons, because she wants them to get a better chance in life when they have English, and how deeply this language aspect has been planted in us with every good intention. We end up not speaking our own languages. And for me, I am also a teacher, and one of the quotes that really moved me was a quote that he says that for the African child before colonialism, the language of the field and the language at home was the same. And now what happened is, with us, the language of the fields and the language at home and the language of education became a different one. And that really moved me, because I started thinking, when have I ever looked up to my grandmother? I mean, prior to me meeting Ngugi Thiongo and really actually starting doing this work, looking up to her as someone intellectual, as someone who can tell me things about life, things about medicine. Somehow, when they were said in English, I thought they were more intellectual. I thought they were more intelligent. And how often did I associate people who can pronounce things well with being more intelligent? And how often did I make fun of Mr. Kamau, who was our chemistry teacher, because he had such a heavy Kikuyu accent? And we would laugh and laugh at Mr. Kamau. But Mr. Kamau was a genius. He knew the whole periodic table. But his accent, for us, the teachers who could speak like people who came from abroad, were the more intelligent ones. And it's through Ngugi wa Thiong'o that I started to see how much I have associated intelligence with pronunciation of words. But it also helped me to see how amazing we are as a people, that although the language at home and the language of the fields is a different one, we still end up going to school, going to the university, all in different languages. I studied teaching here in Germany, and most of my fellow students, their language at home is German. The language of their grandmother is German. Their language of research is German. So, of course, they've grown up speaking German. That's their language of research. That's their language of medicine. And we have other languages. Our language of research is English. We come to this country, we find another language of research, and we still get to do it. So it was not just the disappointment, but it was also, today when I see my people, I'm like, we are really amazing, because how often do we find people actually doing what we manage to do? Jungling different, at least 4 languages. Most of our people speak 4 languages and more. And also just how amazing that is for the brain plasticity. And these days, when I hear teachers say, because I teach in German schools, and sometimes I hear teachers saying things like, "Oh, that child just came from Nigeria, he has no language." And I always ask, what do you mean? Which language are you talking about? Do you mean that he has no ability to pronounce words? Is it something medical? And then they start to think about it. And then that's when they start saying, "Oh no, I mean, he doesn't speak German." And this capability to speak German being called language. And for us now starting to define that is a language. This child doesn't speak this language, but this child speaks other languages, and that they are, I mean, Ngugi wa Thiong'o was big on that, on this hierarchy of languages, and how we have given, even ourselves, given hierarchy to languages. And this really, really helped me, because I remember even when I came to Germany, I used to say, when I write my CV, on that part where you say languages, I just wrote German and English. I never wrote Kiswahili, I never wrote Kikuyu, as if they are not languages. And since then, I list all these languages there because they are languages and I get to speak them today. And I'm so grateful, that's my time. I'm so grateful that I grew up in a constellation where my mother called me Wa Boy, Okahaha. And my mother was not afraid that I was not going to get intelligent enough if she speaks Kikuyu to me. And thank goodness, today I speak that Kikuyu, and I speak Kiswahili, and I speak German, and I speak English, and I'm even doing sign language. And none of these languages have impacted my capability to learn another language at all. In fact, I would say it's even better. The more languages I speak, the better it is for my brain. Thank you. That's my time. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much. Oh, I am so moved by, the sharing of these wonderful stories and, the influences that sometimes we even take for granted, just thinking about how, what you have shared, what Jerry has shared, and Elizabeth and Dr. Uderi and the people before, just how important and how he has, Professor influenced all of us. And so on the list, according to my screen, it would be Bitungi, if you would like to say something. Then it would be Mamanjoki, and then it will be Sita if my screen hasn't changed. So maybe in that constellation.
Hamjambo, mimi naitwa Bitungi
Jambo.
Matundura na ningependa kusisitiza jambo ambalo Wambui amesema kuhusu yeye na uzungumzaji wa Kiswahili. Sasa ukiangalia ile ideology ama itikadi aliyokuwa nayo Profesa Ngugi alipoacha kuandika kwa kutumia Kiingereza, ukiangalia kile kitabu chake Decolonizing the Mind, alisema kwamba kuanzia sasa na kuendelea mimi nitakuwa naandika kwa Gikuyu na Kiswahili. Na kwa hakika alifanya hivyo katika kuzingatia ile itikadi ya ideology ya kuandika kwa Gikuyu. Lakini tatizo langu na marehemu Ngugi ambalo kwa muda mrefu nililiandikia sana katika magazeti ni kule kushindwa kuandika kwa Kiswahili. Lakini sasa mbali na udhaifu huo, Ngugi alichangia mno katika maendeleo ya Kiswahili kwa njia ya translation, ile tafsiri. Kwa hivyo tunaona vitabu vyake kama vile Njia Panda, Usilie Mpenzi Wangu, Weep Not Child, Mzalendo Kimathi, Nitaolewa Nikipenda na vinginevyo. Kwa hivyo nafikiri alifidia, he compensated in his ideology for not being able himself to translate his works to Kiswahili. Other people translated his works, and that was his great contribution. Another issue on his contribution was providing a very, very revolutionary solution, simple but very radical and revolutionary. When you go through Ngugi's essays, you realize that he's actually focusing on what we can call the problematic center. The center is always problematic. And that is why he suggests that if this center is problematic, then why can't we move it? That is why you find him telling us to move the center. And throughout his life, you can see him moving those centers. And Ngugi was very controversial because anything he did could generate controversy. Coming back on how he was buried in quotes, because we are told he was cremated, I think that was another way of shifting the center. So he shifted the center. And then Ngugi was always in dialogue with other writers. You realize that this problematic center Ngugi is lamenting about is the same center that Achebe is talking about in Things Fall Apart. The center cannot hold. Things fall apart because the center cannot hold. That very center is seen in William Butler Yeats' poem, Second Coming. where he also says that things fall apart. The center cannot hold, anarchy is loosed upon the world, something of the sort. So, in essence, what I can say is that although Ngugi is not with us, he has left us with a huge body of knowledge that is going to engage us for quite a long time. Ngugi was actually an industry kind of, and he was an elephant. We are actually struggling to describe him because he was larger than life.
Such a time, Bitungi.
So to conclude, I can say that may he rest in peace, and actually his works outlive him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bitungi, for also sharing your thoughts, and thank you also for speaking about the problematic center and also bringing it into the conversation. So I hand over the mic to our cultural ambassador, Mama Njoki, and then after that will be Sita, if you want to share anything, and then I see Esau then after. Okay.
So good evening, everybody. I would not know where to start with Ngugi wa Thiongo because I was very young in the 70s, and I was making a theater play Kahikadeda. Nitaolewa siku ile ninataka. It didn't make sense those days, but gradually, as I learned more books about him and I started seeing his revolution, that's when I started understanding. And I didn't understand until I got to Germany. Then I knew, so all white men don't talk English. So what is this now? They speak their other languages. And before I became a culture reader, because I inflated myself, I went to Dr. Uderi's school and I talked to her and she told me children are capable of having 7 languages in the younger years. She can restate that. And then I went to Taita Taveta 2 years ago, and I found children going from school talking English, and I was very scared. I asked them, why don't they speak in Kiswahili? They told me the teacher will know and they will be punished. I thought this was gone a long time ago, which was still happening. And I am talking that in a lot of pain because even my granddaughter in Kenya is in pre-primary. She talks to me with English and will not like to speak Kiswahili. There is a fight. So now, here coming to Germany, I decided to bring not only the Kikuyu language, but to make sure we African have our African languages. And that is why I invite people and go above and tell them, this is not about Kikuyu, it's about knowing your language. Why? Because as one of us who mentioned the Gikuyu, Bamba mentioned the Gikuyu and Mumbi, and Gikuyu and Mumbi had 9+1 daughters who got married to them. They were married elsewhere. That means they were married by any other tribe. That is why I talk to all the tribes and I tell them, it doesn't matter when you speak your mother language or a common language like Kiswahili, to bring the culture back to life. Because now I know, here we are doing the culture of Germany. England, they are doing the culture of British. And so everybody in this world, any European country, they do everything in their own mother tongue and their own culture, their own education. Only we in Africa doesn't have that. And to start with, I started with giving small education here. Now I am retired. Therefore, I'm looking forward to go and join Dr. Uderi and others to create that space in Africa, because there is where the problem now is. This is where somebody said is a center. So the center is very loose. So let's go back to the roots. Let's talk about it. Even if you don't know, because when I talk, I see the children turning around and saying, hey, I didn't know that. And they have a power of knowing and saying that they will be happy to know one of the African language or to know the meaning of their names, like Wamboi, like Munyi, like Gishoke, like anybody other names, because I can translate all their names. That is where they become self-conscious and they know who they are. Thank you so much, Jerry, for Wamboi and Elizabeth, and all for bringing us again together. And we shall still remember Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He's not gone anywhere. He's still with us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you also for sharing that. Also wise words, and also again the importance of also bringing that culture and also learning our culture within the continent itself. So I see Sita, if you would like to share something, and maybe also people sharing, maybe show your faces so that we don't speak with iPhone 25. Would be good to see the faces of the people. So Sita, you're next, and then I see Esahuna. I think is the next person, and I see Bold. I know who that is, and then we go down. I see Robert. Welcome, Sita.
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I've enjoyed listening to everything that the earlier speakers have mentioned about our late brother. I've been following his work for many, many years. He's been a great inspiration to my own practice as a creator and a curator. But I had the privilege to speak with him personally a week before he passed with our sister Odilia, where we were talking about one of the major projects that we are working on, the Mapping Colonial History project, and because we were seeking his advice, and we wanted to honor him as one of the, as the ambassadors of this major initiative because of everything that he stood for. What remains for me is how our brother was so accessible. For someone who has achieved so much, to have that kind of humility to the end of his days is something that I take with me, and something that I would like to ask all of us honoring him now. How do we continue the work of not only fighting for our own languages, the preservation of our own languages, and decolonizing our minds, but how do we also in this process make ourselves accessible in everything that we have achieved for the next generations? That is something something that really concerns me very much, something that I would like to pick up based on how our brother lived his life and how he was always available for any human being who was passionate about the continent. And my hope is that we can utilize our expertise to ensure that everything that he stood for, everything that he built and he realized and he was fighting for continues, and that we amplify the person that he was. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sita. Yes, I remember you know, that celebration and acknowledgement that, you know, we wanted to do for him, with him. And yeah, it came, unfortunately, as it came, but I think it's still possible to still honor him also, even if he's not here. I think this is something that can still be carried on and still be done in memory of him. So I see Esahuna, if you'd like to say something, and I hope I pronounced your name properly. If not, then I'm very sorry. And then you can unmute, show your face if you'd like to say something. If not, that is also okay. Then it will be followed by Robert, and then I see Cookie, and then Jane Renel. And then afterwards would be Wangari. Esahuna, would you like to say something? Would you like to share?
Hello, thank you for giving me the word. I am laughing. I'm not at home. I go now to home. Maybe if I come home, I will say something.
Okay, no
Thank
problem.
you.
You're welcome. So we go then continue with Roberto. If you would like to say something or share something. Roberto? No? Okay, maybe in a few. Then we move on to Jane. Jane, yeah, okay, there. I see Roberto, yes.
Sorry. Thank you. I'm on the train. I'm walking to a place where I can speak. One moment.
Yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay, thank you. I am not known by the professor, but I know Vanwa Sharif for something like a decade. And I saw the invitation and I was very curious. And I am very happy that I am on this meeting because I get very much inspiration all the talks, and especially the decolonization. And this afternoon, I was in Leiden at the university to talk about literature organizations and how to create some more decolonization within literature. And hearing all these nice words, I get much more inspired to do so. So I have not much to say because I don't know the man, but I hear a lot now. So thank you for all the information, and I'm very happy to be here and get so much information. Thank you very much.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I want to interrupt here to introduce Roberto Reifos to everyone. He is one of my brothers here in the Netherlands. He is one of the most active people who are trying to keep alive the memory of our brothers and sisters who were enslaved. And so he's been very active in my city and all over the country. And I respect him and honor him. And in his own way, he is contributing to the legacy of the professor, because what the professor tried to do was, to keep our values and our humanity alive through his work. And this is what my brother Roberto Refos is doing here in the Netherlands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bamba, for intervening and also, giving us that important information. Thank you very much. And Roberto, thank you for joining us, and you're very much welcome. I see Professor Peter Ndungi. We are going to to take you in a few minutes. But first of all, I see Esau. Now you must be at home. Now you can speak. And then afterwards is Jane Ray.
Hello, thank you again. I'm now at home. Well, I don't speak well English. Well, maybe you can understand something.
Yes, we
I
can.
thank everybody who speak about mother language that we must teach our children, and our people must be interested about our mother language. It is a very, very good idea. And I think we must look also for we African people to be able to communicate between us. So we have mother language, what we must promote in our ethnic group, and we must look for a language also what every African people must speak without using the colonial language. It is right. Yeah, it's what I want to say, Ratel. Thank you.
Thank you very much also for sharing that. And we are trying, so Swahili is also going. I know there are a lot of other, maybe other languages that are also spoken in West Africa where there's a majority of people speaking the same language. Okay, so Jen, Renee, and then Cookie, and then Wangare.
Hi, everyone. This is my first time to be here, and I'm a lover of literature, and I just love how Ngugi wa Thiongo just knew himself very well, and that just tells us the importance of knowing ourselves. That he was proud of his culture, where he comes from, and that has, I'm just new here in Germany, but that has really that is really helping me to appreciate that I'm a Kenyan, and I appreciate where I come from and be proud of who I am. And now I want to do B2. It's so encouraging that we Africans, Kenyans, we have the ability to learn several languages, and we are very bright, and we can do so much. And I'm just proud that we had such a figure to share light for us. So thank you, guys.
Yes, also thank you for sharing, and also thank you for coming, and we hope all the best for you for B2 in German. And we hope that you will make it. And thank you also for sharing. Cookie, would you like to share something?
Hey, Dr. Jerry, good to see you.
You too, Cookie, welcome. 5 minutes.
Well, actually, I did not prepare to make any contribution in today's meeting, but I still have to, since my name has been mentioned. In our cultural space as Igbos, when someone mistakenly, or when you mistakenly hear your name, if you ask the person beside you, did you call me? The person will say, no, I did not call you, but Cookie. I'll say, yes, I have called you. Don't answer the call of the dead or the call of the invisible ones. So, Dr. Jerry, I did not prepare to make any contribution, but since you've called my name, I have to answer my name. I have to make a contribution, no matter how little it will be. While growing up, I first heard of Prof. Ngugi wa Thiongo during my, I think, senior high school, when I was around the age of 16, 17, in our West African Examination Council, that is WAEC. Before you can be able to proceed to university, you have to write WAEC and pass. So I was, we have two parts in the secondary school. It's either you choose the arts part or you choose the science path. So all my life, I've always loved to tell stories. I've been very, very imaginative. I love to read, so I chose the art part. And then literature was one of the, if you're doing English, it's likely that you also have to do literature. And I love literature so much. In fact, during my WAEC days, I do not write letters, I write stories. I love to write stories. So I first encountered the name Ngugi wa Thiongo in a book that was part of our syllabus, the books we must study to pass WAEC. Then there is two parts, even in the English literature classes, we have African literature and non-African literature. So in the non-African literature, we have William Wordsworth, William Shakespeare, all the rest of them. In the African literature, we had the likes of Ngugi wa Thiongo, Chinua Achebe, Florent Wapa, and all the rest of them. So the first book of Ngugi that I encountered is Weep Not Child. In fact, for a very long time, that has been the only book of Ngugi in West African literature syllabus. I don't know why they prefer Weep Not Child, but the name is very, very interesting and catchy. Yeah, I've read other Ngugi wa Thiongo's books, which has more interesting titles than Weep Not Child. But Weep Not Child is the most popular work of Ngugi in the West African region. So I knew of him as a great author, writer, commentator, and social critic as well. Then one fateful day, I saw myself in a Zoom meeting organized by Carl, and Ngugi was to be present. And lo and behold, Ngugi was there. Yeah, Dr. Jerry was there too. Odilia was there. We all had an amazing evening. And I wrote an interesting article from the conversation we had with Prof. Ngugi wa Thiongo. I titled it "Memory is a Weapon," and it's from one of the few things that that I was able to deduct from the comments, that from the stories and time we shared with Prof. Ngugi. I would like to read from some of I screenshotted some of the things in that particular article. Is on our All Africa Media Network website. Memory is a Weapon by Prof. Ngugi wa Thiongo. If you visit www.am.africa, you will see the rest of the story. But let me read from it. And I'll be also quoting the actual words of Prof. Ngugi. He said, memory and consciousness are inseparable. Without memory, who are we? When we discard our indigenous names and present our baptismal names, which are borrowed from other cultures, we are subduing our true identity, because the name is the first pointer to who we are and where we are from. The name is the first thing that says, this is who I am. So when you're answering the name borrowed from other languages, be it English, French, or Arabic, as an African, the first pointer of who you are as an individual is already pointing elsewhere, he explained. Slowly, with his words, accompanied with a consistent light green, he narrated to us of how new names has taken over identity of ancient places. He made reference of today's New York City in the USA, which was formerly named New Amsterdam by the Dutch when they acquired the land from the natives. The English renamed it New York City in 1664 in honor of the Duke of York. So when the British took over New York, they renamed it. When the Dutch took it over from the natives, they also renamed it. Now this brings my attention to the seat of power in my state,
That's
in
your
Imo
time,
State.
Cookie.
Yeah. This brings my attention to the seat of power in my state, Imo State. In Nigeria, the seat of power is Aso Rock. It is not named after any person. But in my state, Imo State, the seat of power for my governor is called Douglas House. And Douglas, from historical records from the colonial times, is also a white Briton that was very harsh and mean to the natives of my capital city. Since the British left, at least Nigeria got its independence in 1960. From then till now, the seat of power in my state is still named Douglas House. it is still glorifying, it is still glorifying the antics and exploitation of a Briton. So Ngugi was from my encounter of Ngugi during that particular experience with Carl that we had and he spoke to us, I was able to, deep further into my own historical search for my own Africanness. It helped me to think deeper into the source, into the original source of who I am or who I should be and who I have become at present. So at least on this premise, I would love to say that Ngugi brought a paradigm shift to most of his readers, especially people from the African part of the world, and tried to help us to dig as much as possible to find our own collective Africanness. So may his perfect soul rest in perfect bliss as well. And then me, for in the recent times, I've been trying to, if someone like Ngugi dies, or if any legendary person that I venerate so much dies, I try watching in their family, waiting for when the person will be reborn, because I believe in reincarnation. So I believe all of us should put our attention on the families of Prof. Ngugi, watch his daughters, his granddaughters, whoever is going to give birth, and watch to see if Prof. Ngugi is returning to us anytime soon. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so very much. And I beg to interrupt just very shortly because I would really like to acknowledge my brother Nguju, who is the one who drew this portrait of Ngugi that you can see right behind me. And I would just like him to just say a few words. I know he's not a very talkative person, but we would like to appreciate him. And maybe you can say a bit about this picture and a bit of where we can find you, just very quickly. Brother, welcome.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, guys. I'm the one Peter Ngunju. I'm the artist of the artist. That one of Ngugi wa Thiongo. To start with, I would love to say that I was so proud to do such an art, because for me it has been a process of awakening our true selves as Africans. And I would love to say that it was a privilege, even though it was a commissioned work. I really had fun doing it. And I would love to thank Jerry for giving me the chance to work on it. I love you so much, my sister. And for Rose Wambui, also my blood sister, for all that you have done for me. To start with, I would love to say that Ngugi wa Thiongo is a genius. He's an icon, and to say something about it, it's somehow painful that maybe in Kenya, so many people don't know about Ngugi wa Thiongo, and even the children coming up, and even the school system, they don't put much on our heroes like Misere and Ngugi wa Thiongo. But to say on that, I think that in this meeting, I can see that we have so many great people to tell on the influence that Ngugi wa Thiongo has impacted on us. So every time I feel like, from that moment that I got to know about Ngugi wa Thiongo, I feel that it's my mission to put to put his work forward so that people can get to know him more better. And I will also urge the ones on this meeting that we should be the ambassadors of pushing every hero that maybe it's not so many people have not yet had the privilege to know about them, but we have so many people, powerful people who have great influence on us and the generations to come. I think that is the real goal that we should push as African people, because we really don't know, our people don't know how to push us forward. But I think that is the main goal that we should have in our hearts and our minds, to push our people forward so that the world can get to know that we are also great, we are geniuses, and we are powerful. And for that, I would love to thank you, Njeri, for giving me this opportunity to speak to our people. Thank you. And to speak about that, I almost forgot. I wanted to show the picture of Ngugi wa Thiong'o as a person, and also to, on the background you can see the map of Africa and the writings. I just wanted to show that it is not only the face that makes a person, but also the achievements that someone has made, the greatness of a person, and those things that are written in the background are his books and his achievements. And maybe in the next many few years to come, our children and our children's children will get to know about Ngugi wa Thiong'o, so that this greatness of his don't only get to die after he has gone, but maybe in the next so many years, our children will also be singing of his greatness. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of my brother. Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, word back to Njeri.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. What he actually even forgot to mention is he's a genius, because he is the same young man who drew Professor or Mwalimu Michere Githai Mugo, and his picture, the drawing that he drew, was actually even given to the daughter of Michere Mugo as a present. So thank you so much. And it's a spirit. You have to be led by the spirit, because both of them are just amazing paintings, and there's no words that can be able to describe them. If you see it, then you actually realize the genius behind it, just coming up with that idea. So I think now we are going to change our tactic, because I see my screen keeps on changing. So what we are going to do is that I had seen if Wangari wants to say something, she can say something, and then we take Professor Peter. If anyone else wants to say something, just raise your hand so that I can be able to see you, because now my screen has changed again. It has now different faces. So maybe we do it that way so that everybody can be able to say something.
Thank you. I can hear. Is that a real chicken or a fake chicken, Jerry?
It's my daughter doing a chicken sound. Sorry.
Thought so. Yeah. Thank you for organizing this, but also for the opportunity to listen to so many other people. Talk about Mwalimu. I also just was going to join and stay quiet because I think there's so many things that have been said, and still, like, some of us are also still processing the transitioning of Mwalimu into our ancestry. I also joined the meeting a little bit late, and I might have to depart because my little one, it's nearly time for bed. But I wanted to, echo what others have said, in terms of, the impact he's had personally, politically, or professionally as well. I have been again amongst those who were very honored to have access. I think people talked about accessibility and how accessible he was, and I'm like, wow, this is me talking to Mwalimu at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is Mwalimu doing a video call because he wants to see me and see my little one. But his humility as well, because for somebody of such status, how is it even possible? And it's from since it's okay, Emily. So so it's that combination of the who he was that I really like, was so appealing, and because of that also why he's impacted so many. I think since the tribute started, I've also really reckoned with like, oh my God, we had access to somebody who's great. And I think what Njeri Kamau was saying about Ogo, it's just definitely that. He's a star seed, ni Ogo wake ojoridaiya, and that's how we've been able to benefit. And Ogo, Gomi, all of these terms that have been shamed, stigmatized in by religion and everything else. That's what he was doing, and what he's done in his one lifetime, I'd say, is immense. Somebody else shared about the body of work that he's left. Is we could be doing this for multiple generations and still not unpack and like get to the bottom of it. So mine is also I'm at home right now. I was lucky to have hosted him in the UK in 2023, amongst other people. And this, as I said, or maybe have shared with a few other people, was just a conversation between us. He says to me, "Weuka," nikamwambia weuka. And then if I organize the dialysis, nieguka. And that's how it happened. And he was with us for 3 weeks. And for the 3 weeks, again, Dr. Otheri shared about the normalized abnormality. That was the talk. I think I've also done a PhD in the time I've known him, and he's guided me through most of it. So he's, as I said, maybe we held a space for him when we found out the news. We wanted to shakaya because some of us who are all over were like, okay, what do we do culturally? We engage, we go to the home of the person who's passed on and connect with the families. But what do we do when we are all over the place? So we held a space some time ago. And what I was saying then is, he's all over my PhD because he's really impacted me on those levels. But this angle on normalized abnormality is a thing that I learned about maybe 3-4 years ago, and I've utilized it throughout. But to have him and be here with him, because the whole symposium that we organize, we call the Gokogoira Ngugi wa Thiongo, which Gokogoira is like celebrating, and similar to most of us who've held things and or have been in his space and said, we want to acknowledge him and his work whilst he's here with us. I'm honored to have been able to do that. One thing that struck him, because after obviously he went back to the US, he reflected on his time here, and one of them was, I mean, amongst many other things, including some spaces selling out and holding a space, a Kikuyu community space here in Leeds, because I'm up in the north. But one of the things we did was coronation, and Donge Duku, who's, I don't know whether he's here or not, we coronated him as the King of Sheffield, and that was such a laugh because obviously we've been as formerly colonized people and how they come take over, do things in our countries. For us to come and do a coronation here in Sheffield was a big thing. But the other parts of the deeper conversations we were having was what I call, maybe, I don't know if others have it, but guilt around being in diaspora and recognizing what's going on back at home and what role we play. And one thing he reminded, because he introduced me to Njeri, by the way, But one of the things he kept reminding me is the importance of the work that we are doing. So he kind of kept tapping on, and not to take it for granted, because even South Africa apartheid would not have been stopped if everybody was in the land. So some of the rising, the mobilizations, the talking about what's going on, but also awakening people back at home was happening with people.
That's your time, Wangare. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, with people who are outside of the country. And that's really what I want to hold. Him being here, as I was saying, he's sat in the house, he slept here, and that is an honor to me. But the other point, and maybe this is definitely to end on, is we can honor and celebrate him, because he said he doesn't want people to mourn him. We can celebrate his life, and we can celebrate his life through our actions and some of these connections. And I'm happy to continue connecting with other people to continue this work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wangari, and also thank you for sharing that moment that you were with him. And as I said, that's a guilt that I have because we missed each other on the way. But anyway, that's not a problem. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, so as I said, so we continue. If you want to say something, please raise your hand, because my screen has shifted and I can see Professor Peter Dirangu.
Actually, the name is Diangui, but thank you, Jerry.
Diangui.
Yes. It's just so nice to be here, Jerry, for doing this. I was a student of Ngugi in the 1970s in Nairobi. I was there in Kamiritho. But it's so interesting. I just joined late because it is my student who sent me this link a few minutes ago. Purity, I don't know whether you're still here. Thank you so much, Purity Kinoti, because she knows how much Ngugi means to
Habari
you.
mwalimu, karibu sana.
Asante sana. Yes, thank you. But I just want to say this. I was claiming or feeling like I was probably the most special student of Ngugi until all these sessions, like what Wangara was saying, Ngugi made all of us feel very, very special. Very special. 4 weekends ago, we talked about 4 times. On the 24th of May, we had a meeting with the people in the University of Nairobi. Then he called me, I called him, we sang, we talked. He made me feel so good. Like I'm so good. But I have had sessions like this with so many people who are everybody feels like Ngugi made them feel that they're most important people. I've never felt, I don't know whether there's anybody in this world ever who has made us feel so special as a person. Yes, I'm a university professor, but really, I learned how to light properly in our interactions with Ngugi. The whole year we've been talking, I've just finished a book about what's going on in Kenya. I am writing another one about our conversations because he taught me how to write. And Ngugi told me, no, you write very well, but stop writing. Just tell your story. Now that's what I do, telling my story. I miss Ngugi, but these kind of sessions tell us Ngugi lives on in our lives. Jerry, keep this going, and others keep it going. There was a session yesterday, the whole day we spent in the University of Nairobi. There was one in South America. There's everywhere. Ngugi touched each one of us and made us feel very, very important. As many people have said here, let his spirit live on, because Ngugi was not just a teacher. He made us believe and feel good to be who we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and also thank you for sharing. And we thank your student for also sending you the meeting so that you can also join. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. And it's always good for our generation also to see the generation before who really have also other stories and other narratives. So I see Dr. Oderi has written that her Uncle Jenga and Auntie Jerry would like to speak. And so please, we welcome you to please speak and share with us, and we welcome you. Thank you. You have to unmute yourself. Let me see if I can.
Dr. Oderi, I see you speaking, but you are muted. I can't hear you.
What is his name? I tried to unmute him.
Emily.
I was just saying welcome.
Yes, they are unmuted. Yes.
I know they didn't expect. Welcome. Wow.
Thank you. Can you hear? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes,
welcome.
we can. Welcome. Thank you.
We would like to thank Dr. Oderi first and foremost. She's the one who told us that there's this session we didn't know. She has sent now.
Yes,
Just
I
when,
know.
Just when you
Better
started.
late than never.
Yeah, just when you started. That's when I found it. And so I just tripped and you are there, all of you. I would like to thank the people who have arranged this and who thought Ngugi is somebody to be celebrated. I don't think I have any words to talk about Ngugi because he has talked about himself. But he was a very, very, very close person to us. We were like, we were a family because we talked every day. Even when he was living in the US, we are in Sweden, but we talked every day. We even visited him last year, and we spent some 2 weeks with him. And when we talk about Ngugi, we are talking about a relative. And because I said we are not going to talk about him, he has talked about himself. Everybody is talking, you have known him. We know Ngugi from the 70s. That's when we met him. And we have been together all those years. Actually, on my left here, we are in the kitchen. Whenever he used to come here, he used to prepare a small room for him here. And humble as he was, accept the room, as long as he had a light to write, to read or write. And the first time I met Ngugi was in 76. I invited him to a school I was teaching at Kanunga. And that's the time he was thinking about writing in Gikuyu. And he had a very good session with my students to the extent that the school was very poor. Whenever the University of Nairobi Research Department had activities, they used to send us a bus so that my students could participate in it. He's the one who welcomed me in exile. I came in 1986, 4 years after his exile. And we have worked together all these years. And last year, we two wrote a paper in celebrating Ngugi at Atlanta. And I think we're going to have this, paper published. We were lucky that we celebrated him in life. He read our writing, he heard us, and as Jerry has said, we stayed with him 2 weeks in Atlanta. And this has been made it very deep. Our relationship became even more deeper. So that to the extent that at times when he could not sleep, he just rang us, whatever time, to get a lullaby. We sang, we did everything together. As Jerry has said, we are like brothers and sisters. And I think with that, we appreciate you and we appreciate what you have done. And thank you so much for remembering this great man of Africa, whom the Kenyans, in quote, don't want to see him or have him there. One bit, like Thiongo says, during these conversations, I was able to get back to my Gikuyu talent in writing. I've written several poems. One of them is called Itwika. The other one is Mutonyana wa Moyo, and a few more that have been published by Mugabo wa Kirinyaga in Atlanta. And I've also now recently translated one of the speeches that have been made by one of the writers of the diaspora, just to Ngugi, that we can connect with one another through the bridge of the avenue of translations. Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Asante
sharing.
sana.
Asante sana, Begi Mono. Thank you for sharing, and also thank you for also giving us, also that that narrative, that memory of the lullabies. I mean, that's how I also remember him. Every Sunday, I would speak with him at exactly 7 in my time here. It was, telling the stories. He had many stories, the laughter that he always had. And every time I would call him, he would say, "Jata wekuo." So kana jata ni ajerera. So the star has visited me. So thank you so much for sharing that. So
He
as I
mentioned
say,
he mentioned you in his talks with
yes.
yeah.
Yes, we spoke a lot every Sunday. So every Sunday I feel there's a void in my Sunday routine because because that time has just then gotten lost. I mean, it's a void now, but I hope maybe you can take over or someone else can take over. So our date was always on Sundays at 7. So if anybody would like to be having a call with me every Sunday at 7 p.m., that would be great. And then we can maybe remember him and and just have a good time. And we shared many stories, not only personal stories, but also, as Wangari has also said, also academic and what is happening. I remember when I spoke with him and I told him I know of a Kenyan man who wrote his work in Latin. He laughed and then he told me, "Jerry Nideroka," because he still had to laugh it out because he said it's just incredible hearing someone how you can just not write in your own mother tongue but write it in Latin. Okay, so I see 3 hands. I see P2K. I don't know if that was Penina. Then I see Jane and I see Bila. Thank you so much.
P2K is Purity Kinoti.
Yes,
Good
can
evening,
we
all.
see you if it's possible? Yes.
Unfortunately not.
Okay, then you're
I can't
welcome.
change my... So the person whom Mr. Dr. Diangwe referred to was me.
Ah,
He was my
okay,
teacher.
you're welcome.
He was my teacher in St. Mary's. But I'm here on courtesy of Dr. Utheru, because I knew her a long time ago, which was great. So when this was happening, but for me, it was more, the layers to this is, I actually went to Alliance, which I'm aware that he also do. I know that's something that's not appreciated from places. We're the ones who say that. But my understanding is that 2 places I shared that was obviously with Mr. Ndiangui, because he was my teacher. But my understanding of now, just as a catch up, is that Mr. Christopher Hayamba has asked Justice Joel Ngugi of the Court of Appeal to work on his classmates towards convening a reminiscence. I think he had, Ngugi, had joined the class of 1990 in hosting Ngugi in 2015, and they have a 4-hour dinner and chat. So that's where Alliance is at this point. I'm not speaking for them. I usually go to the girls' school, but he will be missed. He made time to sit down, even those who he was in school with, and pass on the baton in that way, whether it was formally or informally. And we thank God for his life, and thank you for being here, to Wederu and everyone else. It's great to listen and to learn. Personally, I come from County 12, which is Meru, which is great because we just launched an initiative to actually have, your mother tongue taught to you, the songs and things like that. And I think if every county did that, it'd be great. Because identity is very important. It goes on to a name. One of the personal thing I'll tell you now, in our own house, in our own home, the way I know who my friends are is how they call my siblings. So in our house, we don't use our Christian names. So if you know me by my middle name, you've definitely been around our house in a good way, which is why it goes back to the name and culture. And there's a lot to be said about that, especially when you're away. There's a comfort in knowing where you come from, and it's not something to be looked down upon. It's good to be open as well to other cultures, I think. And this is just great to be here. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. And any follow-ups, I think whether it will tell me or Mr. Ndiango himself has had me speak. Thank you. God bless you.
You're most welcome, my student. I'm so proud. I learned
I
it
know, I
from
had to
Google.
remind you. No, yeah, there's no problem. It's good to remind our teachers. Yeah, sometimes, Okay, God bless and keep you all. Thank you. And Alliance says, yes, they've not forgotten. And that is not the official communication, but I think I shared with yourself and the current person in charge, of the All Boys Club, though. So, yeah, we'll take it from there. God bless and keep you all.
Thank you so much. And also thank you for sharing. And we keep on the spirit, we keep on, in celebrating him in our own different ways. And then we'll be in the near future where we can make a big event of celebrating him everywhere we are. So I see Ebila. Ebila, are you still there? No? Okay. Anybody else who would like? Oh, sorry. Yes.
I'm trying to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and I'm really humbled to be on this call. I'm calling from Makerere University, Kampala, and it was one of my students who told me about this gathering, and she has left. Ngugi is one great scholar that we are so proud of at Makerere University, and I really testify to his humility. Several speakers have talked about his humility, and I first met him ironically in the US when I was doing my PhD at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where his son Mukoma was doing his PhD in English language, and we would tease Mukoma for studying in English, in the English department, and for us, we were in the African languages and literature department. So he came to talk to us, and one thing that I remember about him was the concept of remembering. And he talked about, and it speaks to what Cookie was talking about. Remembering is not just about remembering the past, it's also about reassembling. It's not just about memory, but in that assemblage of the memory, you reconstruct and you build. And other issues that others have talked about, the importance of language and how he speaks to the reality, especially his earlier works. Right now, when I think about the kind of political situation that's happening in Uganda, it all speaks to the reality of the politics that keep on happening in African countries and in Uganda in particular. I want to remember his work, A Mercedes Funeral. Others have talked about the bigger writings, but A Mercedes Funeral remains one of these satirical works that I still teach in some of my classes. I teach in the School of Women and Gender Studies. And in women's studies, we look at him as one of the men who are feminist enough to bring women characters to life, to speak about the reality of how women and men related to each other. I would want to remember him for that. And I'm so excited that my student gave me this link this evening. I'm really grateful. I don't have much to say, but I just want to thank the world and thank Kenyans for sharing Ngugi with us, because in Uganda, in Makerere, we are so proud of him. 2 years ago, we had a conference, and whenever we are thinking about who to call to be the keynote speaker, we would think about Ngugi. So his name came up, and then someone told us that he can no longer travel. He was feeling weak. But in his humility, he still recorded his speech and he sent it to us. So we are very happy that we have shared his intellectual his knowledge. He shared his knowledge with us. He wrote some of his books from Makerere, and his legacy remains. We are also going to be organizing some of the talks to remember him, and I hope that I can share it with some of the organizers and you can be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and also thank you for sharing, and thank you for coming, and also, you know, talking about the time in Makerere, and that you also celebrate him also in Uganda. So we see he was also a traveler himself of many nations, and inspired many of us. So I see Njuki. Welcome.
Hi everyone. Hello everyone. Thank you so much, Jerry. The way you smile as you share this session is also very inspiring. But also, I'm happy to see the comrades Jenga, MBD, and many other people here. I am in the back here today of Wangari here at the UK, so that's where I'm visiting. So Wangari was with her shortly. But my name is Njuki Rerwa, and when I think of Ngugi, and of course his peers, people like Michelle and many others who have passed, I'm always reminded about that story of the 6 blind men. And sometimes we use that story not because we want to demonize or even to speak ill of the blind, but we say that of these 6 blind men who went to see an elephant, and each touched a piece of the elephant. Some touched the tusks, the legs, the body, the ears, and they all had different stories. So Ngugi to us is like that big elephant whose people describe them in different ways, and describe him in very different ways. We see Ngugi as a writer, which we all remember one of the biggest and the greatest African writers that to emerge in this kind of the world. But we see him later in life as being a big poet, writing very beautiful poetry in Motiri and the Ekoyo poetry. You remember that even before he died, he used to write the poetry of the system that is of the region that is in Kenya. As a great poet of various shades, Gikuyu and in English. But also we see Ngugi as a philosopher king. There are some people who even now say that is a philosophy of life that he is able to shape in society in so many ways. He was such kind of a person, a deep person in terms of thinking. But also we see Ngugi as a revolutionary and socialist. And I think this is not something that Ngugi was shy of. If you look at his books, initially, he was committed socialist. And this is exactly what made him to write plays like Gaiga Dead, Matigari, Petals of Blood, and many others that he wrote later in the years. And actually, this is exactly what even made him to go into exile, where he went many years back. So we cannot forget that Ngugi is a revolutionary socialist. It was also his role to be able to shape society. And I think that's where he linked up with people like Jenga in the Kenya movement and many other movements. But also we see Ngugi as a magician of words. I don't think there's any, if you read Muriwa Kagogo, if you read other books that Ngugi has written, you'll find a magician of words. And I think one of the best things is that a writer will not be able to reach to many people if you don't have that magic of words. But also a champion of African languages. And I don't think there is any notable writer that or in the past or in the whole world who has been able to champion not only African languages, but what you call translation as the language of languages in terms of being very strong and insisting that you express yourself the way you feel it, and you should not be able to throw away our cultures and our language. But finally, when I see the way people like Njeri talk, the way people like Wangari talk, I see a great humanist. If you could be able to speak to you every Sunday at 7 p.m., how many of us even are able to speak to friends like that? So we find a person who, and when Jenga says that Ngugi would come and sleep in his kitchen, the same case I heard from Wangari, that Ngugi would come and stay there with and speak. And I've heard the same stories from people who's calling people like Thiongo and others. You find a great humanist. So finally, is to say that Ngugi is not that person who can be filled, whose shoes can be filled by one person. No one, none of us here would be able to fill or even attempt to fill Ngugi's shoes. The best thing you can do is to take a piece of Ngugi as a philosopher, as a humanist, as a writer, as a scholar, as a poet, and carry that along with us. And this is exactly the legacy of A1 that we're talking about. So for me, I knew him. We met several times, even my days writing letters I think those days when we could not be able to write letters in computers. The last letter I wrote him was delivered last year by a comrade called Moedin Dodo in Atlanta, Georgia. It was a long letter. But also we've met several times when he's coming to launch his books in Nairobi, but also during his trial when the case happened in Kenya. So we have met here and there, but not really in terms of speaking deeply like the way we would like to speak. Sometimes we think that people will be always with us, but they're not with us. It's only when they are gone that you find maybe you have missed something. So thank you so much, Jerry, and the comrades who have organized for this, and we shall live to be able to pursue Ngugi's legacy in words and actions and deeds. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so very much for your words and for everybody who has spoken here. This has been such a powerful session. And I think what has stood out from most of us is about Ngugi's humility and how he was a man of. I think I remember I once told Jerry he belonged to all of us. And the reason is that he touched all of us in very personal ways. I mean, the reason why I call myself Wamboi today and not Rose, I owe that to Ngugi, because he used to say, we Kikuyu women, we call ourselves Rose Kamande, like I used to do, and then we totally forget our names. So we are torn, we are between patriarchy and colonialism, and then we totally forget where we come from. So this man, he was great, and with his legacy, we can't leave it here. And I feel like this is what everybody has been trying to say, even what Joki just said right now. None of us can fill his shoes by themselves, but together we can do that. Each of us in our various fields. I am in education, some people are in art, some people are in the universities, whichever areas that we are in, we do have the capability of at least touching other people's lives and continuing Ngugi's work. And so now the question we have as Carl is, what do we do now? How do we keep Ngugi's work alive, not just on bookshelves? Because I have his books, and I think most of us here have his books, but how can we keep this alive in our daily life? So maybe before we close, maybe we could touch on that a bit. In Germany, we call it Schwarmintelligenz, the intelligence of many people. And maybe this is a perfect chance to have this swarm intelligence of people bringing in suggestions. And I see some people are writing emails of how, and some saying you want to be part of these conversations. So please keep those emails coming. Those people who want to be part of this conversation, those people who say we want to continue this work, please stay in touch and let us know how we can reach you so that we can actually push this work forward and it doesn't lie on one person's shoulders. So yeah, so at this moment I will encourage you just for a few minutes to say your ideas. How can we push this work forward?
Yes, and if you'd like us to stay in touch, you can share your emails with us. And then we can, when we are organizing again together with Pandambegu and Carl and African School, we can definitely reach you out and give you. Sorry, Emily, I have to. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and then we can definitely keep in touch. I think it's not only, and this is something I also wanted to say today, it's we're not only going to celebrate Professor as Mwalimu Ngugi, but also I think very important Mwalimu Mishere, because we also had Mwalimu Mishere here, and there were voices here within Carl, and I think it's also important that we also keep these voices alive. So how can we continue with the work, and how do we want to continue working together? So as Wambui has asked, if you'd like us to keep in touch, contact. If you want to be part of our Carl, Pandambegu, African School, with all the incredible voices here, please reach out, write your email. I can also write my email here, and then we can stay in touch. Is someone going to copy paste the emails? Elizabeth, can you copy paste for me the emails if they're on the chat, and then we can write them after, and I will post mine here in case.
I can explain how people can
Okay.
I think you can go in and save it also yourselves on your own computers, but yes, it will be saved automatically at the end of this session. So I'll just copy and give it to you. But if you want, you can also save it yourself. Just go on the chat and there is these 3 buttons. If you click, you can save it on your computer. All the chat that has been here.
Excuse me, was this session being recorded?
Yes.
Yes.
After that, I think you can post it on YouTube. I think it will have more impact.
Yes, it will be on YouTube.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jerry, is it okay? Because I know I spoke a little bit about me and the impact. Is it okay if I just interject for 1 minute?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before
I
we close.
didn't share that I work for an organization called the Racial Justice Network, which looks at addressing colonial legacies through care. I'm going to add my email here as well, because a few of us, including Juki, who has joined, Jerry, there's Giduku Dongi, and Kyomi as well, who's in the background where Juki is right now. We're talking about continuing, not just like because some of us, I identify as an activist scholar. So I've been in the community doing this work for longer than I've been now in academia. So we're talking about moving this conversation beyond and much further. So yeah, also open to the idea. I was going to try and put some links on the time that we had with Mwalimu here in the chat, but I wasn't sure how long we've got before I'm able to do that. But I'm going to add my email, but I'd also like to, yes, continue the conversation with others.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you. And I was also going to pitch the idea also to the CAL members, to Bamba, to Wamboi, and also to Odilia, and also to Sitam, and also, of course, Pandambegu, if this is not something that we could all join and cooperate and co-join.
Yes.
Okay. So if nobody else has something else to say, our CAL meetings are actually known for staying until 12 midnight, but we're not going to do that today. We will do that in the next meeting.
Yes.
Where we can stay until 12. Today we try to keep time. And I just wanted to thank everybody for coming. Thank you so much. I think we all leave today not sad, but I have a feeling we are rooted today. We are grateful. I feel charged of hearing so many different stories and so many narratives. I feel like through the many stories that have been told and shared in this platform, the space that we've been able to hold together, I feel like Ngugi walked with ancestors long even before he joined them, and now we walk with him in a different way, in another way, in another light. And so I hope that as Wambui has asked, how are we going to continue, that we take his words and we do something with them. We teach, we write, we resist, and we imagine. And I hope that we'll continue imagining even bigger. I think for all of us who've been able to be in this space, Ngugi gave us not the theory of how to do things, but he also gave us different tools, how we can be able to live differently. And so to even be able to imagine differently. And also in the same spirit, now joined with Michere Mugo, who I also dearly loved and I also knew. I'm sure they're looking down at us, that we've met again, celebrating them again. And they remind us that, the struggle is long, but we are never walking it alone. They are always with us. They are always part of our path. And we thank all of you for being here. And let this not be the last space where we share, we meet, but also celebrate our heroes and sheroes. And we make sure that history doesn't forget them, and that we also don't forget what they have been able to do to our lives, how they have inspired us, and how we, as a next generation who have been given the baton, can be able to influence the next generation and coming generations. That they will also, as Ngugi said, that they will remember there was someone like Michere Mugo, there was someone like Professor Ngugi wa Thiongo, and the influences that they have left us, so that their work is not a void, and that their struggles continue with us in our words, in how we act, and also in our activism in every different spaces and places that we find ourselves. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you for coming. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you for sharing your narratives, your stories, and also again speaking life to him, because we believe it's only the body that is gone but the spirit is there. So I say thank you, and as the tradition demands in Kal, we always say goodbye in our own mother tongues. Gomuhoya inyuothe nidamenyire kwaria Gikuyu tondu niafundithirie Gikuyu. Ngugi actually taught me Kikuyu, and he'll be very proud because he would say riu nuramenya kwaria thiomi ya Gikuyu, koguo ni njui kwaria thiomi, koguo ngumwira inyuothe na thiomi cianyu muhote kuga thengio na tuhote kuga ni twathie. So thengio muno, thayo. So
Anike.
Nasibineni na mende lumbola inde muto